Cool.
Oh, there we
Kenton's
go.
in my
Okay.
Kenton's in my neck of the woods this week, wherever that is.
Y- Yeah, I got JP to buy me a steak lunch, guys. It was great. We had a good chat for a couple hours.
Indeed. Cool. All right. Kenton, you got the
And
agenda here, and Cole's got
y-
the
y-
Coke's got the questions.
yeah, basically just to refresh everybody. So uh, there was a space on Thursday with Chad Barraford and Patriot Sounds and with the Coke. And with the Coke was asking a whole bunch of questions to Chad. And then JP, you posted you weren't happy with some of the answers to those questions and you wanted to set up another space to address them. And so this is it. And so JP, I don't know if there's any questions in particular you wanted to address, or with the Coke, if there's any questions in particular you wanted to direct towards JP. You want to
Yeah,
start,
sure. So
JP?
yeah, let's
Yeah.
go. So I just wanted to just really like pulse check, sync check, see where we're at and where is THORChain right now, where is Rujira right now, where's the ecosystem, and what is the plan of the 6 to 12 months. Because behind the scenes, we've still got a huge amount of people grinding away, trying to ship better infrastructure, better features, and better execution on multiple layers of stack. So I just wanted to add that perspective in and also grab any questions that you might have. So yeah, we can wait for with Kurt to generate some questions, but in the meantime, so just a recap. Uh, how are we going? So, THORChain this year has well, just working backwards, it's shipped a couple more chain clients. We did have a 5 or 6 of them ready to go. There's a bottleneck there that I'm trying to solve literally right now, and so we can talk to that. We've Chad has shipped limit swaps, rapid swaps, also in the pipeline, memless inbounds, and also working on memless outbounds. And I'll give you my perspective of why I think those features are important. And then we can also touch base on what's coming around the corner, what we're going to focus on 2026, how we're going to respond to the new primitives in town, which are intense, clearly intense, picking up, and we can explain why perhaps they win on why I think intense is something that THORChain needs to deliver on quickly. So yeah, hopefully if you got any questions, just feel free to raise your hand and yeah, we'll try and get them. So yeah, what are we doing right now? Well, what am I focusing on is we're standing up a team of killer devs right now to grab either StageNet as it is today or fork THORChain and create a new stage environment we'll call ChainNet. And my thesis is that the developing new chain clients is actually not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is on coordinating it down through THORChain's top layer, which is through 9 realms, through governance, through security concerns, through nodes having taken some time to spool up infrastructure, and why I think we should move to opt-in chain clients and opt-in chain clients is a bit of a shift in security posture, but I think it's the only way THORChain can scale into this next generation. And the idea with opt-in chain clients is you don't need 100 nodes to run every single chain client. Right to this day, for the last 5 years, THORChain has existed. We have basically forced every single node operator to run every single uh, chain client, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Base, etc. And originally, it was all done through full nodes. So not only did they have to sync a chain client, but they had to do it on their own infrastructure as well. And 18 months ago, we relaxed that. We started using RPC, or allowing node operators the ability to use RPC. And if you take a step back, why did we have that original security posture? Well, it's this whole idea of eclipse attacks. So if a bunch of nodes just generate a fake inbound transaction, or a RPC provider, or someone who's managing the infrastructure behind a blockchain creates a fake transaction, and then it can cause essentially an eclipse attack on blockchain where the transaction is fake, and the swaps happen on money that's not actually real. So but my opt-in chain clients will allow nodes to pick and choose which chains to run, and largely most nodes will keep running Bitcoin, Ethereum in the main chains because that's where all the fees are. And so the economic model will be for a node operator is, can I spool up this new chain client, and do I want to participate in the fees for that? So for a chain client that doesn't generate much fees, like for example Cosmos, or some of the smaller chains like Bitcoin Cash, or occasionally Bitcoin Cash goes to large volumes, then we will let a free market decide what should be the outgoing risk reward ratio for a new chain client. So if there's low fees, relatively speaking, compared to Bitcoin, then not every node in the top in the 100 need to run that particular chain client. But to pull off option chain clients, we have to do a lot of changes to the vaulting, but it's all manageable. It's just developer work. But it will allow sets of nodes to decide which chains to run. So we can get more experimental. We can foreseeably run a new chain client with just 4 nodes. And those 4 nodes will sync up the new daemon, generate the vaults, put liquidity in, and now suddenly we can support those routes. So I do think that is how we should move into 2026. And we're going to roll out on ChainNet or the StageNet. We will roll out a whole bunch of new experimental chains. We'll have more L2s. We'll do that with the new router V6 design, which doesn't store assets in the router itself. It will forward them into the vaults. And we can experiment with Zcash, Monero when we finally build the NPC required out for that. Yeah, we can experiment with L2s. We can experiment with more Cosmos chains, and really, really make THORChain the one-stop shop. The other reason why I think it's important is THORChain only really served a small handful of chains early on because it was trying to service the biggest beast in town. But that allowed third parties to creep in and build on top of THORChain because they were doing something that THORChain could not, which is originally you would just rock up a THORChain, get a quote. All right. But if you're trying to get a quote on a route that did not exist through a base layer pool, then you have to go and integrate with a second or third provider. You have to go to Mayor Chain or Chainflip or Near Intense or Uniswap or your 1inch. And so wallets and integrators were managing like 5 or 6 different providers, swap providers. And so this was troublesome for them. And every swap provider had their own API, fee models, etc., even API keys, etc. So something like SwapKit was born out of that necessity. Well, what if SwapKit instead built that universal aggregator? So instead of integrating 5 different providers, you simply integrated SwapKit, and SwapKit would wrap all the relevant swapping protocols, and they fill that niche. And today, SwapKit charge 25 bips. What does THORChain charge? 5 bips. So clearly, they've jumped into a market that was created by protocols not servicing all the routes. And I think THORChain has to be defensive here, or even be offensive. And there's 2 ways we can bring the margin that was created and is now giving SwapKit an ability to charge 25 bips and bring those 25 bips or the earning potential of those 25 bips back to the protocol itself. And we can do that with more chains, more routes, and also intents. Now, intents will be a slightly different way of doing intents than, say, Chainflip, which is like just-in-time liquidity, or near intent. So when you get an intent from one of those 2 protocols, you essentially pass in a quote and say, how I'd like to swap this asset with this asset with this price. And an intent solver will immediately, within 2 seconds, take on that risk and say, hey, I'm willing to provide the other protocol for this fee. And so that requires, subsidies, it requires agreements, it requires counterparties once again. And THORChain doesn't like having any counterparties. So the way and I discussed this at length with Chad, is the way we'll build intents is do it slightly differently. Even Hans and I went through it in depth as well. So going forward, THORChain intents will allow you to request a quote on basically any asset to any asset, and neither the in or the out asset needs to be supported by THORChain itself. And the user will say, hey, I want this asset to be swapped for this asset at this price, and here's my maximum slippage. As in, I want 105 grand for my Bitcoin, and execute it to a maximum slippage of 20 bips. And the protocol will immediately take that deposit, secure it in its vaults, and it will open up a reverse auction, increasing the slippage by 1 basis point for every block. So after a minute, it will have increased by 10 basis points. And in that minute, anyone can essentially bid to solve that route. And the protocol will keep opening up the margin until finally some solver will go, actually, you know what, this margin has increased for me enough. Maybe 10 bips isn't good enough for me. So I'm going to wait till it's 15 bips. So they can put in a solution, an offer, say, I'm willing to solve this intent at 14 bips, but not 10 bips. And so it's going to take another 4 blocks to go from 10 bips to 14 bips, and 4 blocks, 6 seconds, 24 seconds. So it gives anyone else 24 seconds to jump in and go, you know what? I can see this guy is offering at 14 bips. I'm going to offer it 13 bips. So essentially, it allows this free and open intent solving process with no counterparties, no market makers, no subsidies. Just let the free market decide. And we can actually do this without oracles. So the original intent design was, okay, offer the current oracle price and basically ratchet up the slippage from that. But then chatting with Star Squid and the Rigi team, trying to ingest all of these thousands of token prices into the network and getting 100 nodes to gossip that in was going to create a huge bandwidth problem for the network. So we've moved away from the Oracle design. Instead, the user will provide the perfect price, and the protocol will just do a decentralized matchmaking service, walking the price down till finally someone solves that. So super excited. And then you might have some technical questions. So like, what if the protocol can't price the inbound asset or the outbound asset? How does it know how much to charge in fees? So what will happen is essentially that the protocol has to shift for those particular routes to a flat fee rather than a basis point fee. And after say a minute and that there's a solution in place, then the solver will actually pay the gas. And you'd let's just say it costs $5 to settle the outbound asset and the inbound asset, then the solver will have to put up $5 in rune or whatever asset that's priceable to settle the two essential trades. And you would expect that the solver would factor in that kind of $5 cost or whatever it is, $2 cost these days, in the solution in the first place. So that's intense. No subsidies, no agreements, no counterparties, just pure, unadulterated, decentralized matchmaking between two parties. So that's coming. And I think getting back to the first point is if the protocol can provide a quote for any route on basically any asset on any other asset on 10, 15, 20 chains, 30 chains, even 50, who knows? And the scaling for 30 chains or higher is provided through the opt-in chain clients. So you don't need 100 nodes observing, 40 different chains. Then finally, the protocol can take back that margin and go, you know what? You don't need to integrate a third party and pay the 25 bips. You can just literally wrap the THORChain quotes endpoint and it will try and match make you forever for any asset. So that's a big focus. There's a couple of moving parts. One is we need to build the intents module, but it's actually not very hard because it's just essentially a cross-chain settlement process. Two, we need opt-in chain clients to scale the chains. Three, we need a faster staging environment for that, which is why I'm basically staying out this team to take over StageNet or generate a new network or chainnet to test and basically test out and harden out all these new chains that we want to get experimental with. So that's a big focus, and this is after the backlog. The backlog already has. We're maturing out limit swaps. We're maturing out rapid swaps soon, and we're maturing out memless inbound and outbound. So I'll pause it there before I get into the next chunk of body of work. Do I have any questions around opt-in chain clients intents and the direction now?
I have a question, JP. You said with this new idea, this new design of THORChain using intents, we could trade any asset that's not on THORChain. We would still need to have the base layer, the gas, like the base chain, the gas asset on THORChain, and then be able to trade any token that lives on that blockchain, right?
Not
Like we
necessarily.
can trade any. Okay,
No,
go ahead.
you won't.
Explain,
You
please.
can go from a
Yeah.
long tail Solana asset to a long tail Arbitrum asset, but it'll be done in 3 steps, not 2. So the first step is, hey, here's the quote, here's my deposit. The second step is a bunch of people bidding on that solution. And like I said, it will open it up at perfect price. The very next block, it's 1 basis point slippage. The next block, it's 2 basis point. And we'll walk. So 100 blocks later, theoretically, it's 100 basis point slippage. So at some point, as long as we have good visibility and good APIs, and anyone can ping, like someone could be manually sitting there watch an intent go up and go, actually, I've got tokens in my Phantom wallet. Somebody wants them. I can arb this loop on Jupiter right now, and someone can manually solve that intent. And and as I said, the protocol doesn't know how to price the gas for that. It doesn't know the price of the assets. It can't actually charge the 5 bips fee or whatever it is. So instead, it will shift to a $2 fee or a $5 flat fee. And so you got the intent deposit, and then you got the bid deposits. And then just say like 20 bucks later, we have a match. The protocol will then ask for either the user or the solver to pay the gas. And so they will just literally need to pay $5 in rune, and it will settle the transaction. So that's why I said they the solvers need to price in the gas outbound costs in their solution. So if they know it's going to cost $5 to settle the transaction, then they need to provide an additional $5 or $2 in rune to settle that up. Now, the protocol will keep unsolved intents in its system for up to 3 days. And in those 3 days, it will basically get stuck at the final slippage price, waiting for a successful solver to pump the gas. Or at the end, anyone can essentially bump the gas to pay it out. If after 3 days let's say there's some really long tail coin in Jupiter and trying to match with some really long tail meme coin on base, and nobody wants to touch it because either the slippage was too low, the maximum slippage to the user set was too low, just like, well, it's not even worth my time, or it's just an unpriced asset that no one can arbitrage, then clearly on both sides, the intent and the solution, there are worthless tokens. So in that case, after 3 days, the protocol would just abandon those assets. But in those 3 days, anyone can essentially just bump the $2 gas fee to get those assets out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but by abandon you mean return the assets to the user.
No, just literally just
Oh.
leave it in the vaults for life. So essentially, it's like this asset is worthless. Not even the user wants to pay the $2 to get it back, and there's no solver in the world that wants to pay the $2 to solve for it. So clearly, both sides are worthless, and it'll just abandon it. And this is a defensive because someone can just throw in a bunch of worthless ERC20s or ERC20s that consume gas or whatever, zombie attack coins. So the protocol has to abandon them after a sufficient period of time. Does that make sense?
So, kind of. So if okay, well, if I'm a user and I place an order, I forget about it for a couple of days. Like I have to go manually pay the gas to have it returned and refunded to me. Like what if I
Yeah.
forget about it? I get busy. I'm on a bender. I'm drunk and all high for the whole weekend, and I forget about it. I could lose my order.
Yes, that's correct. The protocol has to be defensive to attack coins. So if the protocol did try and refund it, then the protocol's bearing that gas cost, and the gas can be driven artificially high. Someone could do a DOS attack on the network and do a million of these like zombie intents. So they have to be abandoned. But after 3 days, if no one is willing to pay $2 in gas to get the coins back, then clearly it's an attack coin and not actually a worthwhile coin. But I should also say that on the main, as soon as the protocol closes a route, it knows exactly the slippage that route was executed on, assuming that the user provided an accurate price in the first place. So the protocol will actually build up historical execution data. So you can go to the protocol and you can see, hey, the last 10 swaps in this route were executed at 28 bips. So you will have a much more accurate quote. You will have an understanding that actually I need to put max slippage around 40, but it's going to be executed around 28. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But I can just imagine this being a nightmare for users.
No, I
Um,
disagree. Else the protocol will get attacked into oblivion. But I want to return to my original point. The protocol
yeah.
must provide and quote for uh, the long tail of assets. If not, it opens up a market for third parties, aggregators to jump in. And today, those aggregators are charging 5 times more than THORChain is. So every day that THORChain is not willing to provide the service and explore the edge cases here, we are letting someone else charge 25 bips. And we need to bring that back in, rein that back in. Building Baltic over the last 18 months, my developers constantly come to me and say, hey, we support 5 providers. What can we just support SwapKit? And I'm like, no, uh, support THORChain routes primarily. Don't pay the SwapKit 25 bips fee because we want to save that money and give it back to our Voltasig users. So I'm thinking, like, as a wallet builder now, like the main pinch point is I don't like having to support 5 different providers. I wish I could just go to a universal provider. And so the protocol needs to take that step. Near Intense is a very good example of a protocol that was pragmatic around well, I would say they're taking some shortcuts because Near does not provide a decentralized RPC or custody solution. Near nodes do not run the MPC and they don't run the RPC to observe in transactions. But also the solving background behind it all, like who puts out those solutions and how much to subsidize, is opaque, right? So we don't know what's going on there. And we want to do a better intent solution that's more decentralized and allows anyone to essentially participate in it. So that's intents. But do I have any questions on chain clients?
I'll let with the coach jump in, see if he has any. He has his hands up.
Oh, yeah, I had one question. Hey guys, I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Was maybe I missed it, but was this intent space layer or app layer feature?
So I spoke to Hans about it. We could have built it on the app layer, but the app layer has bigger fish to fry right now, which is the multi-collateral lending and your credit accounts, which is the top priority. And it actually makes more sense because it requires more protocol level features around vaulting the assets, matchmaking, and being very efficient there. So we're going to build it on the base layer.
That's perfect. But I guess that's a follow-up question. Let's say we have another awesome feature in mind. How do you decide on which layer? Of course, it's going to be a technical. So if it's not possible on the base layer, most likely it's going to be built on that layer. But how these discussions goes between teams, where it's going to be deployed?
Yeah, so anything to do with like core swap features, like limit swaps, rapid swaps, and now intents, should be done at the base layer, in my opinion. But anything to do with more esoteric and more high entropy features like the credit accounts and Ruji, the Ruji trade and perps should be done at the app layer. And it's a bit of a divide and conquer approach, and there is always a discussion about which layer should be done at. The app layer can function very opaquely to the user in the sense that they can make a single transaction, and whether it's done at the base layer or app layer, they may not even know. For example, like Usim will have the ability for you to, essentially deposit into the protocol, wrap it into a secured asset, interact with an app layer contract, settle something there, and then maybe even redeem through the secured asset pipeline back into an L1. So that user experience, the user may not even know which layer's been done at.
Okay, perfect. Because I assume it's cheaper to do it on the base layer as well. Otherwise, Rujira wants to get the fee as well if they start solving those codes.
Yeah, yes and no. Yeah, so this was easy decision for us, although we did have the discussion, but we think it should be done at the base layer because the protocol needs to understand the assets, whether we can price them, whether we can't. And at the end of that is whether the liquidity is in the app layer or the base layer, arbitrages are going to essentially are between the two. So whether liquidity is going into the contract liquidity pools or the order books on Ruji, or whether it's going into the base layer liquidity pools, that liquidity is still available in the markets. And an arbitrage agent will use the two to execute on a solution. So you can imagine that if someone puts an intent up for an asset that's liquid, it's in the base layer, it's in the app layer, then an arb will actually grab an asset from anywhere they want. They can actually solve an intent with a secured asset from the app layer. And in fact, Hans may decide to use the intent architecture of THORChain to liquidate long tail collateral that's in the app layer credit accounts. Like very easy, you could a contract could put up a bunch of collateral that needs to be liquidated that may not have liquidity on the app layer or the base layer, and it will get solved from external to the system, if that makes sense.
Yep,
Cool.
that makes sense. The only reason why I only ask this is because let's say there's people coming on board with THORChain or Rujira. Let's say a lot of people use those tokens as investment vehicles, so they have to decide which token to buy, which token gets the features and the APY. So that's
APYs and yields generate the investor community and the users and where you want to park your assets and which community you want to participate in. But going forward, I see both the app and base layer working tightly together. For example, credit accounts on the app layer, which will be the Halo app, right? No one's on any illusions that a well-executed multi-collateral credit account feature, which is essentially you deposit a bunch of assets in from any chain that you want. They may not be able to be priced by the app or base layer, in which case we can use intents to get a pricing on them or a liquidation offer. And then you can mark those. And in fact, I should have invited Hans up here to explain credit accounts towards the end. In fact, I will let him explain them because it's his baby. If he's still jumping on, yes, he is. But we'll move to the next question. but yeah, credit accounts, lending, and multi-collateral accounts on the app layer will be the halo feature, and I think that's where Ruji need to focus on and deliver, and that's the bread and blood being coming from Rujira with the Orca product and the liquidations like that. That is this is the DeFi super app that will live on Ruji.
Great. You want to go to the next thing, JP?
Yeah, so on the roadmap, so memless inbounds and memless outbounds. So memless inbounds are merged, and memless outbounds will help for gas savings, but also reduce all the entropy we're putting on the base layer of these chains, like these large transaction hashes and ins and outs. So it's important that the protocol becomes more nimble on the base layers, and removing the need to have outbound memos is requisite to that. So, and not only it's going to save gas, but also make things simpler. For example, ERC20s right now have to go via a router, but if we drop the memos outbound entirely, then they don't even need to go via the router. After router v6, ERC20s can be sent directly from the vaults themselves. So that's memoless. Has to get done, and it will get done soon. And then yeah, like on the Monero front, and I do want to revert back to this. In 2021, myself and Heimdall had a Monero swap protocol working. It wasn't using TSS, it was using Monero multisig, which is kind of like a TSS in the sense it was using EDDSA signature linear aggregation to do it. But we had a Monero security researcher in our DMs like for a month saying how insecure Monero multisig was, and the moment we were going to put it out, it was going to get hacked and attacked. So we had to pause development on that. And also, none of the people in the Monero community were very helpful with us understanding the issues with the Monero multisig, other than no one really used it and very few people understood it. So we and there was a bit of pushback from the community at the time about, oh, we don't want to be running Monero on our nodes. And the security posture that all 100 nodes have to run. If we want to add Monero, we're going to force 100 nodes to run Monero chain clients. Then that's a bit unpalatable to some people. So opt-in chain clients will allow a selection of ideologically aligned node operators to go, you know what, we are going to run the Monero chain client, and we're okay with the reasons here. And I think that's good. So I think there's these missing pieces need to come into play. We are building true Monero MPC. It's quite difficult, but it's coming. And Monero next year is getting full chain membership proofs. So essentially, every UTXO in the Monero set will be part of your ring signature. Today, it's like 16 or something. And I do want to highlight the fact that very few people use Monero is the reason why temporal analysis works on the mix-ins. Because if you know that 8 of your mix-ins are already docs, exchange accounts, and swap providers, then you can discount those 8. Those are obviously the decoy outputs. And so you can like whittle it down. So the fact that very few people actually use Monero because everyone's so scared to touch it, it means it's not very, it can't give you that full opaqueness. But full chain membership proofs will open up your anonymity set to the whole UTXO set. And so I think as of next year, Monero is worth, and it will kill its main attack vector, which is temporal analysis. And it will be a very good privacy chain. The problem with Zcash, and I mean, like Zeke, you're only anonymous as the set of the anonymity set. And if you shield your transactions, you're essentially mixed in with a giant shielded pool on Zcash, but that's limited, that's finite, and it's not as big as some of the other. I mean, Monero has theoretically a much bigger shielded pool, which is this entire market cap. So there's pros and cons to it. The reason why actually Monero gets listed everywhere, but Zcash didn't, is because Zcash, remember, it's opt-in privacy. Most of Zcash transactions, well, it was true a couple of years ago that most. I'll have to check myself now, but a large part of Zcash transactions are the non-private type. And so all the exchanges who list Zcash use the non-private type, and only, quote unquote, the bad guys are using the shielded type. So with a push to privacy, every chain should have a privacy solution. This argument is really moot. The second thing is right now today, Railgun on Ethereum is that new and improved Tornado Cash. Railgun is excellent. Everyone should be using Railgun. You should take your MetaMask. Like the fact that my MetaMask got doxed by ZachXBT should indicate to you that Ethereum is not at all private. I mean, how did he dox me? Bloody hell. He's obviously synced up with a full agency behind him who can tell him exactly, these on-chain signatures. But uh, uh, Ethereum, everyone should use Railgun to mask your wallets and move them around. But two, I mean, the fact that right now you can swap into Ethereum, shield it in the Railgun protocol, move it about through another address, and attain full privacy. So where is this argument that we don't want to connect to Monero because it's private? Because you can basically use a privacy chain today. It's called Railgun on Ethereum. So the argument's a bit moot, in my opinion.
So I think it's pretty awesome. I think having Monero would be fantastic. It's one of the things that actually got me into THORChain in the first place was the potential for Monero pool. I mean, bringing fungibility to Bitcoin is, I mean, the Bitcoin maxis will have, they can't not notice that or recognize that. Like it'll be infuriating if they don't. But so I think it's pretty huge. I think it's awesome, man. I'm curious. So you said you guys had a working swap product using Monero's multisig. Is that what you'd have to use on THORChain, or would you be able to use TSS on Monero on THORChain?
The same research laboratory who shipped us DKLS for Voltisig, which has been used live in Voltisig for almost a year now with no issues. It's fast, it's easy to integrate, it's secure. They are under contract building us the Monero MPC, and they say it's possible and it's coming this side of Christmas. So let's see. I mean, take any timeline a developer gives to you and times it by 3. So maybe Q1, but let's see how we go. But yeah, the goal will be to get Monero. Once we had delivered Monero MPC, is to get it on this new chain net as fast as possible.
Cool. And then is your goal to have the opt-in, forget what you called it, for nodes to be able to opt in which pools they want to secure before you add Monero instead of after?
Yeah, absolutely. The nuances there is the bond rewards. So the liquidity fees and the fees collected on a per chain basis will go into chain buckets. And at the conclusion of the churn, instead of today all the fees coming from the bond rewards bucket being delivered to all the nodes, basically pro rata, it would be done on a per chain basis. So if a chain is getting a lot of economic activity and there's a small set of nodes running that chain, then they're going to get more rewards than the people who are just running the bare minimum. Does it make sense? So we will see a free market emerge, and you would assume that the low economic activity chains will have low node inclusion, but that's fine because that reaches the kind of risk reward matrix or the profit margin. And the high economic chains will have high input. And so I could basically assume that all these nodes are going to probably keep running most of the chains today across the board, but some will decide to drop off some of the smaller chains or the bigger chains. Not all nodes are bare metal, so not all node may not want to run a Solana daemon, which is quite expensive. So I assume maybe even like a third of the network won't be running Solana, but that's fine.
So the Monero pool, I'm assuming it would start small like everyone else. And so because it's so small, it'd actually probably be pretty hard to, start hiding your tracks through it, right? Like it's not like Lazarus could throw $1 billion into a Monero pool and play around with it, because if the pool is only 100 grand, it can't handle it, right? So so in theory, anybody who has concerns about adding Monero at the beginning shouldn't be worried, because the pool is going to be too small to effectively use it for pure privacy anyway. It's going to take time for that pool to scale and get large enough and have enough transactions going through so that everyone's hidden in the crowd. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you agree with that, or how do you see it playing out?
And I mean, on a 100 grand deep baseline pool, you can do. I've seen 3, 4, 5x the streaming swap sizes. So as long as there's sufficient arb, you could easily stream across $500,000 in a swap, and you just need the arbs to keep up.
But that's the problem with the arbs, because how many centralized exchanges have Monero? And are they going to be able to arb effectively between THORChain and whatever sex? Isn't that the problem? That's the problem with Monero, is there's just there's no exchanges that you can buy it on. So that, could that make it difficult for ARBs to to
Yeah, I
balance the
mean,
pool or to
yeah,
fill
I
up
mean,
those
if the
trades?
yeah, but if the more volatile the pool is, the more fees will generate for the nodes, and that's that's good for the network. So, these are just emerging problems. But I think
Yeah.
getting zooming back out, like the protocol needs to be its own aggregator. It needs to service all the routes that anyone could want, and to do that, we need to start scaling the way that we do chains and start scaling the way that we do routes through intents. So there's a couple of missing pieces there, but I'm bullish and we're building.
Yep.
So zooming out a bit more, so the protocol generates sovereign revenue through base layer transactions and the emerging app layer. And those are two sources of revenue, which, the base layer swaps are hotly contested these days. There are, multiple swap protocols. For so long, back, 5 years ago, there was no swap protocols. And it's good to see multiple options alive today that you can do swaps on. But as we know, people generally don't swap that much. I mean, how many people here swap once a month? I mean, maybe a couple times a month. Um, but yeah, so like swaps are very ephemeral. There's no real loyalty from users because they would just use the best route, the best aggregator, etc. But the app layer revenue will generate loyal users, and the protocol it's a decentralized custody protocol that's able to hold collateral and support an expressive app layer to allow people to do extra things on it. And the biggest market of them all is lending. And Hans' lending feature will be interest rates, it will be liquidations. Super excited because we all just witnessed the giant wipeout last week of the open interest on the markets and centralized exchanges having all their entire books cleaned out. And emerging out of that, we were starting to realize how much those centralized exchanges through the flash crashes made money on liquidations because on perps is a giant moneymaker for exchanges. They get to liquidate their users ahead inside the maintenance margin. So, if a position gets liquidated 2% above strike and that collateral, immediately goes up, that is profit for the exchange and nobody else, right? But even with hyperliquid going into auto deleveraging, so not only did the longs get wiped out, but no one was providing the long side of the book, so the shorts got stopped out early. So everyone, like, people lost on both sides. But who made a lot of money? Well, Hyperliquid made 40 million in 2 hours from the auto deleveraging and liquidating early. But in the Ruji app layer lending credit accounts, who is going to be doing the liquidations? Well, guess what? It's going to be you. You'll be able to, using the Orca infrastructure, bid ahead of time on liquidations, and you might choose to liquidate and it's an open book. So the next time we have this giant market wipeout, you will get to choose and you will to liquidate as long as you've got the asset that needs to bid on a liquidating position. That is your margin, and because it'll be open and transparent, you'd assume that that margin will get closer and closer to a true strike price or mark price. So it will be better for users, better for users because you will get to profit on those liquidations, and better for the lenders because the liquidations will occur transparently, and through this open bidding process, it will get liquidated as close as possible to market price. So it's fairly liquidated in that sense.
Yeah, we actually had a space a couple of weeks before the flash crash. We had one with Hans walking us through it and basically explaining, the negative side of these liquidations and how the exchanges benefit from it, and how Rujira and app layer democratizes that. It was actually quite serendipitous, and it's really I have to hand it to you guys, or to the developers, like you guys thought of all of the reasons and things that could go wrong on perps and in volatile markets, and how to prevent basically all those things that happened on Binance and killed everybody, prevent that from happening on THORChain. One of them is the oracles, right? So instead of pulling the price for the perps just off the THORChain pools, it's well, those pool prices could be manipulated or simply wrong for whatever reason, and you need to create an oracle to pull prices from all markets. You can't just rely on the THORChain spot price. And then lo and behold, Binance was relying on their own spot price for their collateral, whereas all other markets were fine. They were stable. And their users got wrecked because of the inaccuracy of their own spot market. So yeah, kudos to you guys. Designing the Perps platform on THORChain and building it right from the beginning. Yeah, that's great. With the Coke, you have your hand up. You want to ask something?
Yeah. So much amazing stuff. Awesome to hear. But since we touched on the opt-in chains and the APY, so to be clear, TCY will always get all the pools APY, right? The 10%.
It gets 10% of system income. So system income is evaluated first before anything gets divvied up. Yeah, so that will stay the same.
Yeah, and all the opt-in pools, Monero, for example, they will contribute to the system income as well, right?
Correct, yes. Yep, no change there. So basically, all the fees, currently the system income works that every swap happens, it gets charged in rune. And I was telling Kenton this yesterday, you just take THORChain's annual income, and that is the annual bid on rune, assuming that nodes aren't, selling aggressively to pay for operational costs. But the annual bid on rune is the system income, because it collects it all in rune and then basically buys it and then distributes through the bond module. And so the way that works is when we have opt-in chain clients, is the system income will stay the same. The 10% will get carved off for TCY, and then the 90% will go back into a bucket, which gets divvied up in chain specific buckets. And inside those chain buckets, any node that's observing on that chain will get their share of that. Does that make sense?
Yep, it makes perfect sense. And the future of TCY, it will be there forever, right? And no change there.
Yeah, no change.
Perfect, thank you. So because guys, listen up. Buy TCY, stake TCY, because node operators or nodes, they have to churn out. They had my node operator had the ETH RPC issue, but if you have TCY, it's continuous APY.
Village Idiot. That's your name, man. I'm not calling you that. That's what you call yourself. You jumped up on stage. You have a question?
Hi guys, thank you for accepting me. I have a question for JP with the intents and the fat tails assets. So he mentioned that he wants to onboard new assets that are not that liquid, just put the order in the intents and leave it there. Is there any security issue with the accepting random ERC20 tokens or any other token which can be created maliciously? I mean, when the vault accepts the ERC20 token, there are some ways how you can force vault signers to essentially, for example, drain the vault, withdraw everything. Is there any issue with this?
So there's two aspects there. Is it possible for a malicious ERC20 to drain the vaults? No, not in the current route design, nor the future route design, nor just the vaults themselves. But it can drain the gas. But that's why outbound fees have gas caps, and occasionally an outbound transaction will hit the gas cap and go into retrial. It's for this reason, because you can make an ERC20 and charge up, an infinite amount of gas. Just put a do loop inside of it. So for sure. So there's two layers to this. First is the tokens that the protocol is willing to serve on will be stored in token lists, and these token lists are available and they are vetted by the community. There are the CoinGecko list, the 1inch list. So there's a vetting process there already. So those token lists will just be loaded in the THORChain binary, and it will only quote on these token lists. But these token lists have thousands of tokens in them. There's basically token lists for every chain. You can hunt them down. So there's a couple layers. One, it's not possible to drain the vaults. Two, there are gas caps, and three, there are token lists. But we'll go from 40 routes today to 4,000 or higher routes, and basically on any chain that the protocol is connected to. So and this is going to be exciting, because from my point of building Vaultic plugins, is we spend so much developer effort building out routes and providers and managing them. If the protocol could serve 5,000 tokens on 30 chains, then from a Voltasig wallet builder, I would just wrap THORChain and nothing else. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Village Idiot. Dorian, you jumped up on stage. You got something for JP?
Hey JP, I just had a question on enshrined oracles for TC related assets. Like, how would TCY get utilized enshrined oracles with a shallow pool and also wanting to be used in as collateral?
Yeah, so a couple of questions there is, will credit accounts allow long tail assets as collateral? Well, there's a couple things. There's a pricing problem. Where will it get the price for that asset from? And two, there's a liquidity problem. When you go to liquidate this long tail collateral, can someone actually put up make good on that collateral and liquidate? So that's really for Hans to muddle over. There's a couple layers there. One, there are base layer pools which can be priced and liquidated through. Two, there are enshrined oracles which basically inform the protocol of a theoretical global price of an asset. Today, the enshrined oracles cover all of the base assets, but not of the tokens. So there's a couple level of what blue chip collateral could be an enshrined oracle. Expanding out anything that's a base layer pool, and expanding out from that anything that's can be quoted in an intent. I would assume Hans wouldn't allow a giant long tail of assets, but that's why storing historical data on THORChain of successful intent routes and the historical slippage is going to be important. So if you have some level of assurance that an asset could be sold at some slippage, then that could help. I'd assume that the further long tail you go, the more your margin will need to be on that particular collateral. And for Bitcoin, you might be able to get 75% out, but for some long tail meme coin, you might need to be like 300-400% or something higher. And it's not just risk management. And there's several levers to play with. You can charge higher interest rates for the longer the tail, the more esoteric an asset is, to basically provide a risk reward spectrum. If you have like 100 different collateral types, any particular one managed correctly is not going to be dangerous to the protocol. It's when you have a systemic problem that could wipe it out or wipe users out. But if you've got 80%, 20% Pareto's rule. So if you've got 80% of your collateral in a safe 20% blue chip spectrum, and the other 20% of the collateral accepted is in the long tail, the 80%, then that might be the risk spectrum that we're willing to play in. So, some long tail secured asset might make up only 1% of a collateral basket. So then do you care that you didn't liquidate that long tail collateral at exactly, over 100% mark? Maybe it dropped down to 50% worst case scenario. Then it's 50% of the 1% at risk or loss. But what you gained instead through appropriate risk management was this amazing feature, a multi-collateral credit account where you can pile in these assets and borrow against the whole basket as a whole. Remember, it's all risk. Typically, a protocol like exchanges run their own insurance funds because not even an exchange can guarantee that they can liquidate in time or there's liquidity to liquidate on. So they accumulate an insurance fund to make up that risk problem there. So it really is just risk management, data, and tolerance of that risk.
But let's say this risk realizes and you're not able to liquidate the assets. Who takes the hit?
Then it would be the borrower of the opposite to the lender, the person who's lent out the debt asset, if that makes sense. But from the borrower's point of view, they're getting an interest rate returned back to them. Nothing's risk free, so they're getting an interest rate returned back to them. So that's covering up for the risk that they're taking. And in a multi-collateral feature, even a credit card or banks, there's a delinquency rate, like payday lenders and afterpay services. they track delinquency rates of like 1 to 2%. So they know that 1 to 2% of the people that they serve credit on will not pay. They will just run, change their names and leave the country, right? Credit card holders. How many people hear stories about people racking up tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt and just like snipping the credit cards and leaving, right? So there's always a delinquency rate. It's whether or not your profit can cover the ongoing delinquency rate. And a lot of these margins are at the 10, 20%. And if you keep your delinquency rates below 1 or 2% through good data and management, then that delinquency cost is not going to impact largely your upper line in these events. Hopefully that made sense.
So it's the user who gets the hit, not the protocol.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not a peer-to-protocol lending. It's peer-to-peer.
Bruce, you jumped up on stage. You got a question for JP?
I just want to say, man, you guys are smart, as the smartest. I just want to say, are we gonna be able to make money moving forward?
So, there's a lot of noise in the market, but at the end of the day,
I know.
Start this year we had Trump meme coins, and last year we had this kind of meme coin craze, and then a hyperliquid and hyperliquid forks and perp craze, and at every cycle people end with a sour taste in their mouth. It's like the meme coin cycle, people lost a lot of money, and then there was like the perp cycle, which we just kind of been through, and this giant wipeout last week has left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth. So that reinforces the message to us in the Bridgie team is let's build features that are useful, that work, and are not trying to just generate an on-chain casino, but actually giving people the features that they want. And lending is huge. Like Aave is $75 billion infrastructure. So, and like the lending market, and especially the multi-chain lending market, like that's an untapped beast. And if well executed on, this could be the biggest app to be shipped on Ruji for sure.
Man, seriously, man, you guys are so smart.
Thanks, brother. We're just trying to grind and build.
I know, but you guys are legit. You guys are smart. You guys are so ahead of the cryptocurrency world. There's so many stuff out there that has shit. And you guys are good.
Thanks, brother.
So man, thank you for the space.
And it's Kenton's job to market and share the word.
You guys are part of the 1% that are very smart, knowing what's going on, and I just can't explain it. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, JP Mesh Marketing. Yeah, and Bruce, I agree with you. I do. That's what keeps me in THORChain and sticking around. And I'm not just a sucker for pain. I do believe everything that's being done and built here is like solving not just one but multiple problems in crypto and real problems that people have. We went over the perps, right? The perps design on THORChain is not going to be better than what's happening on Binance and maybe even Hyperliquid. Memoless, right? How many people have had their wallets drained from linking to a malicious website? Memoless swaps will prevent that, protect your people from that. Just the regular problems with centralized exchanges stealing from people. The old school problems, FTX and Celsius. Like all these things THORChain is solving. Then if we get Monero and that pool gets to a size and we bring fungibility to Bitcoin, how many problems is THORChain that's 4 problems we just solved right there, right? And how many more are we solving that I haven't thought of? It's pretty impressive, JP. It's pretty cool at whatever you and everyone else has done here and continuing to do.
Yeah, and the job is not done. I would say looking at what we're trying to build from the top down, there's a good couple of years of build out there. And the good thing is the multiple levels of the stack that we work in, from Voltasig, Ruji, Rune, the money is not a problem. The funding is there. We've got the good people in the right seats building. All we need is to write those lines of code, make sure it's secure, roll it out, and coordinate. And it's really, we're looking for people with tenacity to survive the grind, because this is I mean, I've been doing it since 2016 or something. This is every year I want to quit, but every day I come back to work because it's difficult. You get to a point where you know too much, and you don't want to walk away because there's still another wave of innovation that needs to be delivered, and each cycle there are more problems to solve. But standing back now, like the protocol works. It's got a very passionate community. It makes money. It is solving a problem on multiple fronts, and we just need to keep building. And it works. At the end of the day, it works, and it's like why don't all these and we're solving it on that front as well. Like a lot of these analytics that don't get to show the biggest feature of THORChain. It actually makes money, and it's like top 10 on the leaderboard for L1s that make money. And THORChain's kind of Midgard and data services is has to be necessarily a lot different to like EVM land, and that stuff is easy to wrap, but it makes money, and yeah, it sometimes feels like we're like, especially in Cosmos land, because Cosmos back in 2015 I thought was amazing, and the Cosmos stack with WASM and everything around it, IBC and BFT and the way the nodes work. There are some parts of Cosmos that are wrong and have always been wrong from the start, like perpetual inflation at the base layer and stagnated node sets and no validated churning or no aggressive validated churning. That stuff has always been wrong and should be changed. But it is the app chain thesis still works. The protocol is an app in its entirety. It's trying to do a feature. So yeah, we just got to keep building.
We get them.
Also, I don't know if you guys know from my experience, I do a lot of swapping, and with THORChain with a Trust Wallet, I was able to use it. I mean, it's worked very efficiently, and it's good. I just want to share that. I use it a lot.
Brother, you are using the wrong wallet. Download Voltasig today. No more seed phrases, brother.
And you can Trust Wallet is charging you 70 basis points. You go to swap.thorchain.org and save yourself 0.7%.
Oh shit! I did not know. I didn't know that. I did since 2021. I've been using Trust Wallet. Oh my god! I did not know that. Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very good. Cool.
There you go, buddy.
Any more questions here?
No.
Around the crew.
But anyway, the technology work. Okay, guys. I just want to make a point. The technology work, and I will change it from move forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Cool. Any further questions? Any hands up?
Yeah, with the Coke, did you have anything else you want to ask?
Sure, but I guess JP is busy guy. I don't want to train, but
no, I can go for a few more minutes. Keep going.
Okay, maybe you can touch. Maybe you can touch on the future of the Rujira. This has been like discussion as well, like this exclusivity and will they be on the 50-50 split forever, and a little bit maybe how this is going to pan out, because since the ADR wasn't that clear and there is like room for speculation when it comes to future.
Yeah, so the protocol negotiate with the Ruji team and give them unhindered access and privileged access to the app layer, because we wanted a cohesive app layer, and actually allow people to have high quality products. And so they have a 12-month exclusivity period to, I think it's June next year. And the node operators have the hammer on this, and it's quite simple. Like, is Ruji working? Is the income worth it? Because it's a 50% tax rate. And so if they do want to open up exclusivity, then they'll have to necessarily drop the fees. And do they want to? And so Kenton's always pushed for, free markets, let's drop the fees right down and let anyone compete with anyone. And I like Kenton's approach to that. But also, like, if Ruji is working really well and generating this income, then you might as well keep around the exclusivity without dropping it. But it's yin and yang. We're still a while to go, a lot to build out. But a cohesive lending protocol with multi-collateral credit accounts, is I think going to be the biggest feature that they can ship. And so we're just I'm processing.
Yeah, good. Because I mean, the biggest problem at the moment that I guess people are not happy about is the onboarding of the Levana team, and the people are waiting like after the perps to come live, but issues there.
So that's partly because Enshrined Oracles, we advise them not to rely too heavily on the base layer prices, because with an XYK liquidity pool, you can actually manipulate it. I mean, you will pay fees and you'll pay R, but it's still possible to move the price around, you know, in a direction. So we've just released Enshrined Oracles last month, and Ruji should be rewiring up to those Enshrined Oracles. But once again, like, you know, within the next 6 months, if the current Levana effort of Ruji Perps is insufficient and it's the wrong model, then either they need to change the model and build harder, or we'll open up to another team to have another interpretation of that. And the whole idea is like, give a focused team a clear head start and let them build something that works. If not, then open up to more competition and more teams to build.
Okay, and from me, last one only. I noticed you mentioned maybe onboarding Acash, providing security for them. What's the deal with that? Are we acquiring other protocols under us, or maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so iCash ran a sovereign chain with 8% base layer inflation, and you know, keeping around a sovereign chain that was not making much money is very expensive. So for iCash, they want to move to like another app chain and live not rent free, but live and you know, they'll pay gas costs. So they're looking for. I mean, I threw that comment in there, that reply. You know, if you're looking for a you know, giant set of node operators, decentralized execution, a wasn't app layer. I mean, Acash managed compute between different you know, like GPU mining services. So that's like, it's got nothing to do with Ruji. So if Acash wants to bring the community over and put it on the app layer of THORChain, then I think it should be an easy answer. Obviously, if the node operators you know, want to see that as well. Acash, it looks like, don't want to pay any income or commission. Greg replied to me and said that they're not looking. They want to go from 100% commissions down to 0 and only pay gas fees to minimize that. And you know, that's his decision, and he will get you know, apps to offer. Like, I think the Cosmos Harbor or some other Cosmos chains can accommodate him. But yeah, I think any app on the protocol that gets to use the protocol's secured assets should charge pay fees, because those secured assets do cost money to keep around. That's important. So whether it works or not, let's see. I just you know, wanted to open up a line of communication.
Perfect. I think you answered most of my questions that I had in mind, mainly Rujira and TCY futures. So nodes have the stronghold on Rujira, basically.
Yes,
But
that's
the
correct.
Nine Realms owns. I didn't know that, so it's fantastic that we had actually Chad on the space. Nine Realms supposed to own a lot of nodes. So how
I
who
don't.
owns the cap?
They are capped at 20 nodes. So Nine Realms have, you know, they're a large node operator. They essentially built out all this infrastructure. So rather than each node needing RPC, they run one set of RPCs and then plumb that into the node so they can achieve economies of scale. They do actively market looking for bond, but I actually believe the number is only 20 nodes. They were under agreement, and I can check this up, but they run less than you know, they cap this all at 20 nodes. I'm not sure whether 36 nodes, but I've got a meeting with Simon tomorrow, so maybe I'll ask him directly.
So they're not a risk for a protocol. Let's say they want to pack their bags and whatever. The CEO thinks he will have new other hot stuff to pursue. So
No, I mean,
they're still
a node operator can be ephemeral, but the bond providers are providing the bond, and bond providers are free to leave it anytime they want. In fact, that's why we built the ability for any bond provider above the min bond 300,000 to they have an ability to kick their node out of into churn. And so a node operator that's not listening to the bond providers will have their nodes kicked out, and that bond provider can easily yank their capital within 3 days. So there shouldn't be any hold up there. I mean, I know a bunch of node operators around the community, and They run the nodes. They've got their own profit margins and their own fees, and I think it's a very good node operator set, very aligned and heavily aligned. And in fact, in the whole lifetime of THORChain, I've never seen any form of a malicious node operator in the sense that they weren't responsible for holding the chain up or doing nefarious activity. In fact, I know of at least one node that had their node internally compromised. But the way the protocol is built is it doesn't even matter if a node is compromised. They still can't do anything. So the only case that I know of where we've had a non-aligned node has been a node that was compromised, but the hacker or whatever couldn't actually do anything. So there you go. So that should be proof enough.
I see. I think I had it mixed up. So 9grams owns the node, but the bond is provided by the community.
They just run the nodes. No. So
I see.
Yeah,
Perfect.
exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I've talked to 9realms in the past, and they have like an internal policy or whatever that they want to stay below 20 nodes. And it was like they want to, how do I say this? They want to maintain THORChain being decentralized, but also too, it's also internally to protect themselves, right? Because if they, let's say they had half the nodes or whatever, and then Big Brother could come and say, "Well, listen, you exert a certain amount of control. You are in control of this network. We're going to come after you. Blah blah blah, whatever, right?" So it isn't just to try and be nice to THORChain. It's also on their end too to protect themselves, right? That they have plausible deniability that if someone ever came to them and said, they could say, "Listen, we have less than 20% of the network. Like we're not in control." So it's a business decision too. And I've talked to other node operators who look at it the same way. Like they might be able to do more, but from their point of view, they actually want this to do less, so that they don't exert a certain amount of control over the network.
Yeah. In terms of the agreements here, so like I said, the only counterparty that THORChain has is Binance, because Binance have a giant bunch of rune in the exchange of hot wallets and cold wallets. And so I actually view as Binance has been the only counterparty the protocol has, and really has. There's a bunch of service providers, but those are all clear. 9realms earn a 5% dev fund. The nodes control that. The nodes agreed to give 9realms a 3-year run at the dev fund so they could bed in and build. And coming up to the conclusion of the 3 years, I'd expect a big discussion. Does 9realms get renewed? Kenton as well. Kenton put up ADR, was it 21, 22, which ADR 21, which is the marketing fund. So he and his team, Scorch, another node operator, are obliged by the protocol to deliver a marketing strategy and report back. And at any point, if the community and node operators think that Kenton's team is not doing marketing correctly and is not spending those funds wisely, then I'd expect a discussion. Let's divvy up the marketing fund to maybe with the Coke and Dorian to run. It's like everyone is like one ADR and one node vote away from changing things up here. There's no lock-ins. The people that work, for example, RuneScan, THORChain.net, our hypernative scanning service, etc. They have bonded nodes, but they have a service like runescan.io and THORChain.net are running today. If those websites came offline and those developers went missing, then the treasury will unbond, pick a new person, and away we go. So there's, like I said, there's very little counterparty to THORChain, and all of the agreements can be easily unwound by the community.
I think this is great. Anybody else have questions? You want to come up, request? We're waiting for that. JP, is there anything else you wanted to add? Maybe
No, I mean,
do you
I
want to wrap
think,
this up here?
yeah, I mean, in all markets and in all business ventures, you have to adapt or die. And the only protocol that doesn't need to cheat like this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually can do zero adaptation forever. Actually hold on to that thought, because the only thing that's going to bring down Bitcoin is quantum computers. Because, and I was checking this recently, there's 4 to 6 million Bitcoin at risk, quantum at risk. And the moment someone builds, I think it's like a 500,000 qubit quantum computer, they will start strip mining all the quantum at risk UTXOs. And this is happening. Like experts agree, this is going to happen within the 5-year mark. And I don't want to fight Bitcoin because it's very hard to fight Bitcoin, but I'm saying you need to be aware of the quantum computer risks. Like 5 years ago, we were saying, oh, AI is coming by 2025. It's going to write poems and software code and build images and stuff. That timeline has played out. In fact, if you go 10 years ago and read Wait But Wise posts on AI, he nailed it. 2025, we were going to have AGI. And arguably, artificial general intelligence has arrived today in your ChatGPT or Grok subscription. So that timeline is correct. So do not pay heed to this advice. Quantum computers will bring down Bitcoin because you cannot protect those at-risk UTXOs with a hard fork or a soft fork to Bitcoin. Like you basically have to, it's going to be chaos. And like even if you look around today, like the quantum resistant algorithms are like 3 kilobytes per signature. Bitcoin's bandwidth Bitcoin will have to increase its block size, so therefore open up hard fork problems. It will have to change its signature algorithm, and so be soft forked and hard forked around. So a big challenge coming to Bitcoin. But so I'm saying you have to adapt or die. And I think money is just going to become high velocity. It's going to be used by the labor force, the largest labor force that we're building, will be silicon machines. They are going to use a high bandwidth, low latency, maximum conduit currency to trade between themselves. And it's looking like, what will it be? So you just have to be adaptable. And THORChain since the start has pivoted, turned, been nimble on its feet, adapted, survived everything thrown at it. And our roadmap is reflective of that. A year ago, if you said to me, hey, we should be doing tents, I'll be like, no, not interested. But today I'm like, no. A month ago I had this realization that we need to be doing intents because we need to be our own aggregator. And we can only be our own aggregator by building intents. So we're very nimble on our feet, strong opinions loosely held. And the whole community and the whole node opera community, the developers and the ecosystem are nimble, iterative. They are willing to be humbled and are willing to change their opinion and are willing to fix their mistakes and keep moving forward. And that's basically the culture of THORChain. And it is strong and alive and it's building.
And what THORChain lacked in changing in the code, they made up for in promotion, marketing. Like Bitcoiners market the hell out of Bitcoin, and that's what we're going to do with THORChain too. That's the whole point of the marketing fund. Start marketing the hell out of THORChain, like all this awesome stuff we're talking about. It's great. There's 100 of us on this call. Maybe we'll get 1,000 people in total listen. Right? We got to get tens of thousands of people hearing this message, and we're going to put money and resources towards that, and all over. Like, I think the global south, like, Russia, like, people that actually need no KYC exchange, we want to target those people. So everything, everyone, everywhere. The website is up, you guys, swap.thorchain.org. It's live, it works. There's no fees. I think we're at 10 basis points now is our min swap fee. So like Buddy was saying on Trust Wallet, you don't have to pay the 70 basis points of their fee anymore. You don't have to pay the 150 basis points on Ledger. THORSwap is 50 basis points. You don't have to pay that. So trading on THORChain is cheap now. Swap.thorchain.org. And if you guys, the reason Bitcoin is huge is you have thousands of people around the world talking about it, right? And for THORChain to get huge, we need, all of the hundreds and thousands of people in our community start talking about it too, and get people going to the site. So swap.thorchain.org. Check it out, guys. JP, we good? Should we wrap it up?
We're good. Thanks, Kenton.
Yes.
And hopefully I answer everyone's questions.
Yeah.
Stay bullish, stay online, keep going.
Thanks,
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.